Good evening, friends. I'm Dr. Aajay Shah, bringing this another great weekday evening live. And I have today actually a special guest. I know her through Facebook, but actually I watched her on the Facebook with her own live, some of her singing on her Facebook, and actually some of the great motivational talk she gives on her Facebook live. She herself is a family practice physician. She also has an aesthetic practice. So for all the women, please stay tuned for the whole live. We'll be talking about that at the end. She herself is a life coach. She's a health coach. She actually is also a motivational speaker. And like I said, she's a great singer and great pianist. And that's Dr. Kristin Miller. Welcome, Dr. Miller.
Thank you so much.
So please tell us, where do you live now and what type of practice setting you have?
Yeah, I'm in Oklahoma, right outside of Oklahoma City. And my full-time job is I'm doing family practice, which is everything from birth to death, from newborn babies and geriatrics and everything in between.
Wow, that's great. Let's dive into the 6 pillars of healthy lifestyle. I want to get your opinion as a family practice physician that what are your views on this standard American diet, which has led to this epidemic of obesity?
Well, it's certainly responsible for at least 90% of the patient visits that I have on a daily basis. There's been a lot of confusing information, I think, with American diets over the last couple of decades, from like the low-fat diets and the food pyramids and things like that. And so I think that people are well-intended, but unfortunately they haven't got a lot of good information over the years. And so more than ever, they're looking to their doctors to find out what actually is healthy. It's not straightforward for most people. And like I said, most of what I treat is hypertension, diabetes, and most of those things are pretty much caused by our diet. And so despite the fact that it's job security, it would be much better if my patients could present in a healthier state without those things, obviously.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. There's so much confusion about what we should be eating. And I think there are all different, various reports, various books, even various, some of the great doctors and authors, push their own diet. And I think that's where, as a family practice physician, as a cardiologist, I think it becomes important for both of us to study both sides, particularly the low fat side and low carb side, and then try to streamline what diet suits what persons and what patients needs. Because like many data says that if someone follows both keto and low fat diet, at 1 year the weight loss is similar. And I think some people will do better on one, some people will do better on other. I think in general, I prefer that everybody eats lots of vegetables, fruits, and beans. But after that, I think the field is wide open what approach one takes. What are your views on that?
I completely agree. So a couple of years ago, I had a patient coming in and telling me about keto for the first time and was telling me that he was eating sticks of butter to lose weight, and I about lost my mind. So I decided to read some of Dr. Jason Fung's books, and I actually got to meet him. And the science and the chemistry behind keto made a lot more sense to me. So I personally tried keto for about 3 months and lost no weight. And that really boggled my mind. And I have a friend that is a physician and also a health coach. And she asked me if I had done the 23andMe genetic screening, which I had. And there is actually a genetic variant where about 17% of European descendants, we have a gene that actually causes us to not do well with high fat diets. And so I transitioned that into a low sugar, low flour diet, increasing vegetables, and just kind of made it my own and found way more success with that personally. That being said, I've had tons of patients that have done well on keto. Like you said, at the end of the day, I think it's really important to try to figure out where somebody is and what disease process or whatever family thing they're trying to, stay away from, and really meet them where they are for something that makes sense for their day-to-day life and that's also going to work for them and their body type. I agree.
I agree with you. That's a great point you made also. So I think that brings this a great tug war between the importance of fiber and protein. Obviously, protein has been always considered the most important nutrient. I kind of disagree. I think we get more protein than we truly need, and at the same time, we need actually half or less than half of fiber we need. So, what are your views on fiber and protein?
I think it's interesting. There is a doctor in New York, Dr. Joel Furman. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Wrote the books "Eat to Live" and "Eat for Health." And I think that understanding vegetable fiber and understanding these books basically are written from a nutritarian perspective, which essentially is vegetarianism, but with superfoods. It's like, instead of just saying I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat meat and those kind of things, it's like really focusing in on the fuel that you're giving your body to be the highest nutrient possible. And so in those books, it does kind of, it leans a lot more onto the scientific proof of the benefits of fiber for your body. So I agree. I think obviously things like keto and things like that, they're leaning very heavily paleo. They lean very heavily on the protein, but the health benefits, you know, ounce per ounce, you're going to get far more health benefits from focusing in on fiber than, you know, than just protein. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I think I remember Dr. Furman's equation, H equals N over C, where H is the health, N is the nutrients, and C is the calorie. So like you explained, that more micronutrients, like a Mediterranean diet we have, and less calories we have. So generally we should have lots of micronutrients for the amount of calorie we get. So if we look at the broccoli, tons of micronutrients, very little calorie. And then if you look at any of the animal products, a lot less micronutrients and a lot more calories. So I think that's where this
Absolutely.
approach of micronutrients, phytochemicals, antioxidants comes in. So let's talk a little bit about role of dairy. Recently, there was one article published that a woman who drinks a glass or two of milk increases the risk of breast cancer significantly. So what are your views on dairy?
I think that there's still a lot of mixed data out there, but the things that I have seen that are evidence based definitely points towards more of a pro-inflammatory response to dairy than a beneficial response. And there's been quite a few documentaries, and I know that that can be questionable whether or not that's actually evidence-based, but some really good arguments as to why we push dairy so much in America anyway, with who was paying for that. And so I think it's really important to question that. We have a lot of people that have developed intolerances when it comes to dairy products, and that kind of should make you question things. I mean, there's not many vegetables that people have intolerances to, gut intolerances, and so I just think it's you know it's still, I would say, controversial. Especially, I'm in Oklahoma. We live on farms out here, but I would say certainly a lot more data coming out about just pro-inflammatory of dairy versus what we used to think it was. Like you should always have a glass of milk with dinner and that kind of thing. I think we're moving away from that, and I think it's probably for the better.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think you said it very right. Dairy has a pro-inflammatory effects, also has a significant elevation of IGF-1, which also is a pro-cancerous. And also, I think this theory and this push from dairy industry that it helps to have calcium and makes your bones strong. But actually, if you look at the data in the countries where the dairy use is highest, they have the highest amount of osteoporosis and fractures. So I think,
Right.
at the same time, I agree with you. I think a lot of the vegetarian, and I was literally looking at the today's one of the slide, which was posted by Mr. Scott Fulton in a longevity advantage. In that his slide, he showed that in blue zones where people live up to 100 and live healthy and happy, the dairy use, I was very surprised actually, shockingly surprised, the dairy use actually was slightly higher than standard American diet. Obviously, some
Hmm.
of the dairy was goat milk and some of the other type of milk, but definitely on that slide, there were some graphs about how much vegetables we eat, how much whole grain we eat, how much animal products we eat, how much processed food we eat. And there was another graph about use of dairy in blue zones and use of a dairy into standard American diet. And blue zones actually ate more dairy. So I
Huh.
believe dairy is still controversial. The jury is still out, and we need more randomized, more, whatever epidemiologic data we can find to prove that dairy is good or not. And I think in India,
Yeah.
I grew up, everybody had dairy. I was vegetarian, but we all had dairy. So
Yeah.
and we all lived fine. So I think I agree. I think it's still controversial. So let's talk about a little bit about some of the chronic disease, which is your specialty. You
Yeah.
see, like you say, you see a lot of diabetes, a lot of high blood pressure. So please tell us your tips for any of our viewers and followers. If they have diabetes, how can they reverse the diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obviously, and how can they try to get off their blood pressure medication?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. When I was a resident, I very distinctly remember the first patient that I had that listened to my recommendations for lifestyle modifications and dietary changes and got herself off of her blood pressure medicines and her diabetic medicines. And I'd never felt like so victorious in my life when that happened. I celebrated with her, I cried with her. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of times people don't even want to hear it because they just feel like it's impossible. They feel like, no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to be healthy. And so I try to just break it down into like small manageable things. My dad used to say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And so I always try to just say, well, what's like one thing you could do? For example, throughout COVID and quarantine, I found myself drinking a lot more sugary Starbucks coffee. I love Starbucks. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
And so, I was thinking about all the changes I needed to make to get back to my healthy lifestyle. And I started with one. I started with cutting out the daily Starbucks. And instead of having it every day, having it as a treat every couple of weeks or so. And I've already lost over 10 pounds in like a couple of weeks, just cutting one thing. And so I think that we really just need to encourage people because they have kind of this discouraged look at the whole thing. Like, I just don't know how. And it just feels so daunting and overwhelming. And if you can just focus on one good habit or add more green things to your day, or, one thing that's manageable can make the hugest impact when it comes to something like diabetes or blood pressure. And we all know that, while the medications that we give them, I'm so thankful for them. And I'm very glad that they continue to help people to live. We know that medications have side effects, and we know that, honestly, it would be so much better to make lifestyle modifications than to take a medication. It's not on the same page, medications have their issues, so if we could actually just make some small changes every day and get off the medicine, we'd be way better off. But I think it starts with the conversation of empowering your patient to realize it's not impossible. Like, let's just work on one thing at a time. And when I do have those victories with patients and can get them off their medicines, it's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. So yeah, I
No,
think
I think those
super
are
important.
excellent points. I think when patients come and see us, sometimes they are obviously worried about their health, but they also have to, take care of their family, take care of their finances, take care of their house, take care of their car, sometimes take care of their parents. So their plate many times is full. And if you overwhelm them with like 15 changes on day one, they actually will probably not make any change because they still have other things to do in life also. So I think I agree with your idea of starting small and giving them small victories and let them just ask for more. That, yes, doctor, I now change my diet, I eat more greens, what is my next step? I think it may require 2 or 3 visits, but that would be more sustainable instead of overwhelming a patient with a lot of things thrown at her. So I think it's a very practical approach, and that's what I think your hat of wearing a life coach hat and also a health coach hat, because I realize that many doctors are great doctors. They can write prescription in 1 second and they can do a procedure in 1 hour, but they are not very good at coaching people because we don't get a formal training in medical school, at least when I was in medical school, in terms of coaching. So I think I'm glad you are a coach also, because your patients benefit significantly, you being a coach, not just a doctor.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I am. In my end of my residency at Florida State, we actually had a full-time faculty that was a psychologist. And every time we would present a patient, she said, okay, and what's the psych component of this? What's the social component? And at the time I was annoyed because I was like, it's diabetes, it's not psych, leave me alone. But it certainly made me a better doctor to be able to look at things like that and to be able to understand how they got in this situation in the first place, And so my eyes have been open very wide since going into this whole life coaching thing and understanding how much more powerful and more effective I can be as a doctor when I can understand how to meet people where they are. I think one of the most important things I've been working on when it comes to diet and lifestyle modifications with my patients is to first and foremost, I tell them, you're going to have to start working on loving yourself as you are, at the weight that you're at and where you are right now. And we work on things like I am worthy statements, like looking in the mirror and saying, I am worthy, I am beautiful, because if you don't like yourself now, you're not going to like yourself more at 30 pounds less. And to try to make sure that the inside is being worked on, as well as, the nutritional side of it. And I found that when you take it from that approach, people are much more successful, because a lot of our eating issues are from buffering bad emotions and feelings and being bored, right? And so if you can tackle it from that point, you're going to be way more successful with your patients with diabetes, hypertension, and all of it,
No, I think that's an excellent point you made, that making a person, a patient, aware of their own self-worth, their own self-esteem. I think uplifting that would be the first step. And I think I also said that second step would be to having that person find the purpose or the reason for trying to achieve those goals. Because if you have a purpose, there are higher chance of success, because then you have something to look forward. Maybe it's a fitting in your wedding dress, maybe it's a grandson's graduation, whatever. There is a final purpose or a final reason and destination. So I agree, having a self-worth and having a purpose. So let's talk about the second pillar, and that's about the physical activity. What are your views on physical activity or exercise?
I love physical activity. I can't say that recently I've been as good at doing it daily, but just from personal experience, I understand that a lot of patients have ailments that can kind of make physical activities more difficult to find ones that fit their bodies, especially with arthralgias and joint replacements and things like that, heart failure, what have you. But there's something for everyone. I got into Peloton a couple of years ago, and having a community like that where everybody kind of holds you accountable, I love it. It's amazing. And if nothing else, I look at it as, while I'm exercising, movement obviously helps with endorphins and helps you feel better, but you also can't be eating McDonald's while you're taking a walk or riding a Peloton. So if nothing else, it'll keep you busy doing something healthy instead of doing the alternative, sitting and watching Netflix and snacking. So I think that it's probably underestimated how important physical activity is. I would say people probably understand more or less that, your physical health comes from exercise, but I don't think people understand enough the connection between mental health and depression and anxiety and the lack of moving. And that we can all do something. It might look different for everybody with our, capabilities, but just, it makes you feel so much better. So if nothing else, just do it for that reason.
No, I agree. I think I remember the study about mild to moderate depression and Prozac and exercise, and both actually were equally good. And actually, exercise had a less chance of recurrence compared to Prozac. So they both work, but exercise actually kept the depression away for years and years. So I think exercise is a mental drug itself. I think if exercise can be packaged into a pill, it would be $1 trillion drug, because so many things. So let's talk
Absolutely.
about sleep. Sleep is an important pillar. Many of us take sleep granted. Many of us think sleep is a waste of time. Many of us think that if you want to be successful, we should be working 24/7. What are your views on sleep?
I think sleep is the most important thing I know of, even honestly, in my opinion, more important than what you eat or your exercise. It's where you spend, hopefully, a third of your life. I think investing in a good bed and investing in a good pillow and making sure your environment is set up for you to be successful with sleep is so much more important than anybody realizes. I think most disease processes are highly affected by your lack of sleep, including mental health, including hypertension, diabetes. We've done a lot of research on sleep apnea and things like that. I think it's something that people take for granted. I think that, especially young people think that you can just keep going, myself included. I mean, I went through residency and all that, working all those hours and moonlighting and all that fun stuff. And it wasn't until my kiddos were a little bit older and I could actually get a full night's sleep that I realized how much of a better version of myself I was, and how much more capable I was of doing the tasks every day, of keeping my mind focused, of showing up in relationships the way that I wanted to, of having the energy to be able to exercise or choose healthy foods. It literally is the foundation of everything in your life. And so I think it's very underestimated, but I think that hopefully, as we continue to come out with some really awesome mattresses and things like that, I think it's drawing more people to the concepts. And I think as doctors, I feel like we've had more tools developed over the years to help us help people sleep better. And so I think we're moving in the right direction, but I just still think people underestimate how important it is.
Yeah, I think sleep, and I agree with you. Sleep is one of the most important thing. I take it very seriously. I sleep 7 to 8 hours. I mean,
Me
consistently.
too.
Even though I work full time cardiology like you do. I commute 2 hours. I do a lot of Facebook lives, but I still manage 7 to 7.5 hours sleep every night. And actually, for a lot of women, let me give you a study. So these women were taken. They were not allowed to sleep for 2 nights in a row, and their pictures were taken before and after when they were not allowed to sleep. And they were given to some independent observers, and they felt the woman before the sleep versus after the sleep had aged by 5 years in 2 days because
Wow.
they looked so tired. Their eyes were so baggy. They had no kind of a good skin turgor. They looked like depressed. They looked down. They did not have a good smile. So just 2 nights of sleep, you may not get all 5 years in terms of the bodily changes, but in terms of the look, you definitely start to look very old if you don't sleep. So I advise every man and woman, if you want to look good, make sure you sleep well. So
Absolutely. Interesting.
we'll talk about that. Yeah. About the role of relationship. We all obviously should be having a great relationship, great spouse, great partner, great kids, great parents, great friends, great community. But what are your views on relationship?
Yeah, I think that that's a really important question. I treat a lot of geriatric patients, and I've done a lot of hospice work. And one of the most common themes that I hear when people are dying is how much they wish that they had held on to relationships, whether it was with friends or with their children, partners. And so I take that really seriously. I think that that's very wise advice. And I think that relationally, I think that we were built as humans by God to be in relationship and community with people. I think that that's one of the things that separates us from artificial intelligence, is that we have an innate desire and need to be around people and be in fellowship and community with people. And there's so many studies that talk about the benefits in life from having close friendships and having a good relationship with your partner, and how it affects your mental health and your success and your physical health. And so I think that a lot of us probably go on autopilot more than we should in our relationships, and kind of just see how it plays out, and maybe don't put enough focus and attention that we should. And I think that, that's unfortunate. I think I work on a goal book every day. I write down my 10 goals in 10 years every single day. And every morning, my number one thing is I spend time with my kids and have a very solid relationship with my kids. And I remember that at nighttime when I'm tired and I'm putting them to bed and I'm singing them their bedtime songs. And I'm like, I just want to hurry this up. I don't want to read this book. And I stop and pause and say, look, I don't know how many years I'm going to have to do this. And this is one of the most important things in my life. So it's not where I'm going to cut corners, It's not one of the things I'm going to give up. So I think that a lot of us should probably invest more time and energy into our relationships than we do.
I think that's an excellent tip from you. I think I agree with you. I think relationship is give and take. You cannot take. You have to give in too, and you have to plan it. You have to think about it. You have to like literally, look into how you can make it better. I think, to be honest with you, in any relationship, when it's unconditionally given from you, that's when it flourishes. You cannot expect to give only when you receive. You have to just keep give, and then almost everybody will receive if they keep giving. So, that's how the nature works. That's how we work. So let me ask you the next pillar, and that's about the stress management. All these pillars obviously are interrelated. They exponentially affect each other. And stress management obviously is one of the most concerning thing with this COVID-19 going on right now. So how do you help your patients, your clients, and help yourself with the stress management?
Yeah, I think a few years ago when I stumbled upon life coaching and hired my life coach was the first time I really took it seriously. My mental health, my stress levels. Um, I just graduated from the life coach school as a certified life coach. And Brooke Castillo, who owns Life Coach School, talks a lot about how in life we're going to have negative feelings. Things are going to come up that are going to make us sad and stressed. But it's how we deal with those things. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with them. And so what do? Like I said before, we buffer, we drink alcohol, we watch too much Netflix, we eat too much food. And our result, we've just talked about all that. And so I think that that's a cornerstone to a healthy life, both mentally and physically, is understanding yourself, understanding how you feel, understanding what your stress triggers are, but also just as important, what do I do with that? Now that I recognize that it's there, how do I make myself feel better? Is there something healthier that I can do besides going and binge watching Netflix and eating ice cream? Like, what am I supposed to do? Because unfortunately, while we spend a lot of time in school learning a lot of important things, we really don't learn this stuff. We don't learn stress management. We don't learn how to pay attention to our feelings and how to create a healthy outcome from any of this stuff. We just learn how to avoid it. And so now that, I've spent a great amount of time focusing in on that, there are certain things I do on a daily basis. Like I would say the most important one would be a gratitude practice and meditation. I think that those two things on a daily basis are the difference between me showing up in life as a stressed out, frazzled, busy, overworked person. And then on the opposite side, when I do my meditation and gratitude, I show up loving my day, being thankful that I have my job, being thankful that I have this time with my kids. It's a complete 180, just from being able to sit and meditate, take some deep breaths, relax, and be thankful for my world. Certain things like that are just so subtle, they can take 10 minutes, can completely change your entire day. And now that I do it, I'll never stop. I do it every single morning before I do anything. My family knows that. Like, just let me have my time. I have to do my gratitude practice because I'm a better version of myself.
No, I think those are some excellent points you made, and I actually practice the same thing. I was just telling another guest just 2 days ago that I have this master gratitude list, which I have written down everything gone well in my life, including coming to America, including getting into cardiology, living in a nice house, driving a nice car, having a great spouse, having great kids, having a great job, all those things, including living in the Midwest like you do. I mean, all those things are such a great positive things for me.
Yeah.
So I have that list on our refrigerator right in the front. There are like 22 or 23 items. Whenever I have not so good day, when I come in the evening from the work, as soon as I enter the kitchen, I read that list and I'm back in a good mood because I know there are 23 things which are going even still today good for me. Maybe the one small thing did not go good day for me, but there are 23 great things going for me already. So I think my parents are alive, I have a great brother. I mean, all those things are something we have to be gratitude for. I mean, just imagine there are some countries in the world where the people don't have food on the table. People
Yeah.
don't have a shelter to sleep. There are bombing going on all the time. So I think we are very fortunate. I mean, actually, even people who are in those areas, they also have things to have gratitude for. So I think every human being can have a gratitude. And if they practice that, their life only will get better. That brings me
Absolutely.
next pillar is the substance abuse, alcohol, and smoking. I'm sure you see a lot of patients with those things in family practice, even some teenage smoking, teenage alcohol. What are your views on that? And how can we help people more to prevent this substance abuse?
I take it again from, I keep calling it buffering. But basically, I think that a lot of those things come from us trying to feel better or avoid feelings that we don't know how to process. And I think that if we can get to the core of that, especially in teenagers, getting to the core of why peer pressure exists, getting to the core of helping somebody, no matter what their age is, understanding who they are and loving themselves as they are is going to certainly put a dent on all of the substance abuse issues we have. I mean, some of it's very tricky. I have a lot of patients that have, alcohol abuse and things like that. And it is very, very tricky. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But for a lot of our patients, sometimes we don't even approach the subject. And so I've gotten very comfortable in the last few years. Just every single patient I bring up like about 5 questions, and like, are you struggling with depression or anxiety? Because they never want to ask that. I say, do you drink alcohol on a daily basis? Are you using tobacco products? And just even softly, I say, like, have you thought about, not doing that, and just meeting them where they are? Sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they're not ready. And I'll just say, I just want to let you know that any day you decide that you're ready for that, I'm available with tools to help you. And just, again, meeting the person where they are, understanding that, substance abuse affects everybody in your family, your kiddos, your partners, and understanding that it plays a huge role in your overall health for all of the things we've discussed so far.
I think that brings an important question to you, knowing you from your Facebook page, from your Facebook Live, knowing how you present yourself on Facebook. And I want to really learn from you about the role of spirituality, the role of religion, role of what, it doesn't matter what religion you belong to, whether you are Hindu, whether you are Christian, whether you are Muslim, it doesn't matter. But just being a spiritual and being a religious person, what are those two things playing a role in our health?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And, I've traveled the world. I've been to 37 countries at this point. I was brought up Protestant Christian, and I have been fortunate enough to have friends from many different religious backgrounds. And I would say that one common denominator that I have found is that all of the religions, we all believe that God conspires for us. And we believe that we have a purpose. And there are people that don't believe in God, and there are people that don't have religion. And in circumstances like COVID or losing a loved one, I don't know how to help them sometimes. I don't know what ground we can stand on when the bottom drops out. If you don't have the belief that there is a God that conspires for you, that loves you, that wants good things for you. And I think that ultimately, that's what helps a lot of us be more successful, knowing that we're not alone, we have a purpose, and that there is a higher power that gets us through things. And so I think it's much more difficult. One of the things I've always been thankful for is faith, because that's not something you can will into your life, and I'm so thankful that I do believe in a higher power. And I pray for those that don't have faith, because I can't imagine how difficult it is going through life without the ability to believe in something bigger than yourself, because it's the thing that's got me through every hard moment of my life.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I believe in the same way. And I think, I think my parents, just like your parents, instilled those values, having a faith. And I think faith means also that respecting everyone's faith. And I think
Yes.
respecting even people who are atheists. I think both in Christianity, Hinduism, and all religions, it clearly says that every person, every live being, we should love unconditionally, regardless of what they bring on the table, regardless of what religion they are. We should be loving unconditionally every human being and every live being. I think I'm in the same thinking like you. So please give us your views on this special group of people in America. And they are actually considered the blue zone of America in Loma Linda, and that's a 7-day Adventist. What is so special about them, and why do they live 10 years longer than an average American?
Well, I have to say, I am certainly no expert on this whatsoever. I've known a few people that are 7-day Adventists. I actually shared a church facility growing up with some 7-day Adventists, because thankfully they would practice on Saturdays and we would practice on Sundays. But I honestly don't have a lot of knowledge on this group of people, or I didn't even know what you just told me. So that's pretty phenomenal. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this 7-day Adventist people, the large community in Loma Linda, actually, like I said, they live 10 years longer. They're actually very healthy. So they're not just they live longer, but their health span is also very, very high. They are active, they're busy, they're happy in their 80s and 90s and even 100s sometimes. They actually many times are vegan. They don't smoke. They don't drink coffee even. They don't drink alcohol. And like I said, they are vegan. They move every hour. They don't do any activity from Friday night until Sunday afternoon. They have a church-based outdoor nature walks. They gather every weekend as a group. So they have a great social bond. I mean, they have all the characteristics of a blue zone, which was, by Dan Buettner from 2003, 2005. So I think we have a blue zone right here in America. And so we
Wow.
don't have to go to Okinawa, Japan, or Ikaria, Greece to mimic them. We can mimic our own neighbors right here in California. So I think
Yeah.
we need to read more about them. We need to learn. There are a lot of YouTube videos on them. And I think I highly recommend all of our viewers and followers to look up Seventh-day Adventist Loma Linda, and they will learn so much about their lifestyle. So
That's
let's
awesome. Thank you.
yeah, let's talk about your role as a life coach. So, number one question, which is very important question, we partly covered it. And please tell us, for all of our viewers, including for myself, what are some of the things we all should do to maintain a good self-esteem for ourselves?
I think that I think a lot of us lose ourselves. I think that it starts at a very young age. We learn how to be who we think that we're supposed to be, who we think that other people want us to be. And along the way, you lose track of who you are and what you want and what you were born to do a lot of times. And I think that there's a journey to get back to who you are, because I feel like God has created you exactly as you're supposed to be. And I think it's our job to figure out who that is and to honor that. And I think that that all starts with recognizing um, what you want, recognizing who you are, and starting to be kind to yourself and talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend, instead of the inner dialogue being that of a bully. And I think that all of that work, I've been doing in the last few years with my life coach day by day. When we first started off, we joke around that some of this work that we did, the inner work, it first felt like renovating a very old house. And throughout this process, there are still times where I forget some of the basic things about loving yourself and respecting yourself. And, but it's not like renovating a house anymore. It's like wiping down the counters of the renovated house. So you get better at it with time. But I think a lot of us really have a lot to learn about self-respect and loving yourself and honoring yourself. And I think that once we do that, we're going to show up as a much better version of ourselves for the world around us. So I feel like that's really one of the keys to making the world a better place, is it starts within.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points. That also brings one of our pillar. We have 20 pillars. I take very seriously each one of them. We started with the 6 pillars of healthy lifestyle, and people can read on my background, all 20 pillars. And one of the important pillar is a women empowerment. Very important. I take it very seriously. I take it very personally. I want women to be as equal to a man very, very soon. They have waited very long. It's very, very unacceptable, and we need to change that ASAP. So let's talk about your role as a life coach, how a woman can get respect, can get equal pay in this male dominated world when it comes down to just standing up for yourself.
Yeah, I love that you're asking this question. I'm very passionate about this too. I would argue that it's not a male dominated world. I grew up in America, and from mostly what I've seen, I was brought up to be empowered and to not think that I was any less. I do recognize there are statistics about men being paid more than women for the same job and things like that, but I don't believe that it's a male dominated world. I've certainly been to places in the world, different countries and such, where there are very different views on women's roles and men's roles than what we have here in America. But I think that as an American female physician and leader, I think that what's one of the most important things that I can do so that my daughters grow up in an even better world than what I have is to speak up. I think that a lot of times there have been circumstances throughout my career where I have not received equal treatment to a male. And I think that earlier on in my career, I would back away or just not want to get confrontational about it. But I learned that that certainly doesn't solve the problem. And so I have learned ways to communicate to those people in those positions of power that no, it's not okay that you think that way, that you see it that way. I think that we need more women to be leaders and to be sure of their voice. And again, starting with loving yourself, but to stand up and speak for what you know is right. And to speak out for injustices. And I'm friends with a very powerful female leader, Dr. Sasha Shokut. I don't know if you've heard of her. She runs BeBraveEnough.com, and it is meant for mostly female physicians, but female leaders. And she has a very large following, and she does CME events, and she does small gatherings, and she teaches classes, basically all learning statistics and facts about inequalities for women, and teaching us how to be good leaders and what is effective. How do we make effective change? Not just complaining about things, but how do we actually make good change? And so I think being a part of groups like that, and learning about those statistics and how you can make an effective change and be a leader has been certainly beneficial for me and dozens of other women.
Yeah, I think excellent points you made. And I actually personally, I take this thing very serious, like I said. And I think I also pledge all the male, all the father, all the brothers to help the daughters and their sisters to make them feel special, make them feel that they are equal to them, give them all the opportunities you would give it to your son or anybody else. And I think mom's role is very important. At the same time, father's role to give the same respect to the daughter, and brother's role to give the same respect to the sister is very, very important. I think I agree with you that we have made a progress. When I was in medical school, this was in 1980, we had 100 students and we had 36 girls. So this is 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we had a 36%. And today, to many people's surprise, many people happy surprise, in our daughter who is in medical school at Jefferson in Philadelphia, they have 51% girls and 49% boys. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think progress has been made, but we still
Yes.
have a long way to go. So let's talk about your favorite thing, and that you just mentioned before we started live, and that's about the telehealth. This COVID-19 has made some positive changes. Obviously, some unfortunate things, including a lot of people dying, a lot of people losing job and other things, but some positive things. And that's about having this opportunity for a lot of our senior citizens, a lot of our people to have this telehealth available to talk to their physicians with video or on the phone. So tell us your views on telehealth.
I love it. When I first came to my attending position out here in Oklahoma just over 5 years ago, I was vice chief of staff of our hospital shortly after I came here. And when we were talking about our 5 and 10-year goals, I said, my goal in 10 years is to be working from a cafe in Paris and seeing my patients remotely. And people laughed, and I said, it's going to happen. I love so many things about it. I have a lot of geriatric patients, a lot of pediatric patients that it has not been really in their best interest during this pandemic to be out, especially in a clinic, especially in a COVID clinic, to be coming to see me. And I love that telemedicine has offered me the ability to be able to meet with these folks safely in their home. I love the flexibility of it for my own schedule. We went through a lot of things with our schools closing here, and I am a single mom with 2 young kids. And when this happened, I was able to change my work schedule to work 2 12-hour shifts from home, from telemedicine, and then 2 half days in the clinic, which means I get my kids now that they're back in school, I get them on the bus every day and I get them off the bus every day. And when they were home, I had a nanny, but it also just gave me a lot more opportunity to be here with them every day. It was the flexibility of my schedule, my nurse's schedule, and the list goes on and on. There's just so many possibilities and opportunities that we didn't have before, and ways to serve our patients and meet them where they are. I had recently moved from a rural clinic to the clinic I'm in now. It's about 30 minutes closer to the city. A lot of my patients don't even have transportation to come see me, let alone the physical ability sometimes to get out of their house and come. All of those patients now have the ability to see me even in nursing homes. We have the nursing staff has an iPhone. Okay, so we do a televisit through Doximity. It's just opened up so many possibilities. And I feel like so much better medicine, because people who previously that couldn't get to the doctor just wouldn't get medical help. And now I'm able to see them and help them. And so it's just opened up a lot of amazing doors. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think one day when this state boundaries and barriers are removed. See, right now, I think either because of a political environment or financial incentives, state licensing is a major issue in practicing telemedicine
Hmm.
across the country. And I think, imagine if you have all the state barriers removed and you can practice actually all 50 states based on just one state license, just like what VA hospitals do. If
Right.
you are licensed in one state, you can go to any VA in the country. So if VAs can do it, I'm sure other states can apply. I think one day I see, to be honest with you, I see in 5 to 10 years a push either from AMA or from many other organizations to have this no state barriers so we can practice telemedicine. I think that day will be coming soon, 5 to 10 years or before. So let me ask you an important question, which is kind of a related question about women empowerment. And that's about balancing self-care, career, and care for others, like for you kids and other things, your career. How can a woman balance self-care, her career, and also care for others?
Well, that is the million dollar question, my friend. I will say that a few years ago, I had a lot going for me, but it didn't feel like I had a lot going for me. And when people asked me, but are you happy? I would say, well, my happiness doesn't matter. As long as my kids and my partner and my patients are happy, what does it matter if I'm happy? And how wrong I was, because I didn't realize that in order for me to bring the best that I could for my kids and my patients and my partner, I had to be happy. And so I think that that's kind of a hugely underestimated problem, especially with women, and especially with women who are professionals and mothers, is that, you know, we tend to give to everybody else until there's nothing left for ourselves. And I've actually learned to completely flip that around, and that being selfish is not a dirty word, because when I take care of myself and when I'm getting good rest and when I am taking a time out to do a meditation, then I can offer the best version of myself to my kids. So I actually think that instead of trying to juggle everything, I think that checking in with yourself and taking care of yourself allows you the ability to be able to do the best for everything else in your life by first making time for yourself. And during a pandemic with pay cuts and everything, I was thinking, okay, pay cuts, that means I cut out all the self-care. That means I don't get my hair done. I don't get my nails done. I don't, you know what and my life coach said, no, time out. Pandemic means there's more stress, there's more anxiety, which means you have to double down on your efforts to take care of yourself, because there's more expected of you and there's more anxiety, which means you need to make sure that you are right with yourself first so that you can still show up into your world as the best version of yourself. And it is so true. So I think the secret to balance is taking care of yourself first.
Wow, I think that's an important. That applies to both male and female, women and men, everybody. I think it applies to everyone. So let me ask you now the important question which every woman is waiting to have now. And that's your another hat, another field you are specializing into, and that's aesthetic care. So how can a woman, or man too for that sake, how can a woman maintain a beautiful looking skin?
I would say like it's complicated, but if I can break it down into something very simple, I remember when I was younger, my friend's mom always used the Pond's products, you know, like the cream for the face, and she looked so young and still does. And I think like if we can just even keep it simple, you know, like we're fortunate enough to have some very complex skin regimens these days. Most of us do not keep up with those, and so if you can just keep it simple, and I would say moisturizing our skin is way more important than we think it is. The same as drinking water. I think that drinking water is probably one of the most ironic things, in my opinion. It literally cures everything, yet we underestimate it so much. So for your skin and your mental health and your weight and your diabetes and your hypertension, drink water. And for the outside appearance, keep your skin moist. Use lotion, use sunscreen. For the love of God, don't be going out and trying to get a tan. I don't understand that. Don't go in the sun. And just keep, you know, if there's one thing that you can do, just apply moisturizer, and that's going to be able to keep that elasticity and that, you know, the smoothness of your skin as you age. Even if you don't have time or money for Botox and fillers and peels, okay, just keep moisturizing your skin.
That's an excellent, important thing for all of us, including myself. So that's very good. So I think this kind of concludes what I wanted to hear from you, but I still want you to have your final thoughts for all our viewers, particularly all the women. How do you keep up with this great looking skin, great medical practice, being a life coach, being a mom, being a busy missionary, being a singer, which I'm going to ask you next time when you come live to have a piece of your singing, and being a pianist? How do you just keep up with this thing?
I think it's actually, I think people think I'm much busier than I am. I know it sounds like I'm very busy, but I don't think busy is a compliment. I used to, I don't anymore. And so I follow my intuition. If I feel like I have a song on my heart and I want to sit on the piano and play the song and sing it and put it on Facebook Live, then I do that. If I feel like I'm working too much and I need to take a time out and spend time with my family, I take a vacation. If I have a lot of things lined up for the day, but I didn't get good sleep last night because my kid was up sick, I cancel those things so I can rest. And I think that just checking in with myself and knowing when, having good boundaries, getting really good at saying no. One of my life coach's favorite sayings, pardon the words, but if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And I think that's very important. I think we love getting busy and we love signing up for things. So following my intuition and doing the things that I love to do, and not being afraid to say no when it's not what's best for me or my family, I think is the secret to having it all. And I'm not nearly as busy as people think I am.
No, I think you balance it so well. So I'm so very
Thank
proud
you.
of you. So thank you, Dr. Miller, for coming on our page. We are
Thank you
bringing you
so
back in a
much.
few months and
Yes.
keeping up with what you are, other things you are doing in life. So just hang on. I'm going to go offline. We'll talk a few minutes. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.